Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Would like to. Yes, thank you very much for giving me some of your time. And would like to be talking about something that is interesting. It is going to be practical a little bit more than usual, because and this is something that we're going to use later on in the topic that is covered by this week, which is not using the phone. I'm just saying. It just happened to be in front of me because most of the time you're on the phone. Anyways, it's something about the triggers. Something that we're going to see this week is something known as trigger, which is something that happens after an event. What thing that happens after an event? For example, if I sell a product, I would like the quantity in stock to be subtracted from the quantity that I just sold. I sold 10 bags. Well, I'd like from the stock, I would like to subtract 10 automatically without me having to manually do that. And this is something that I can do with those triggers. If an event happens, I can set some kind of a code that needs to be executed, some queries that needs to be executed, so I can just maintain my database in a good shape. So, but before doing that, I need to show you something. Before, when we were creating tables, we were doing that just with the SQL statements. And I would like to show you how to use this MySQL workbench in order to create a database. Now, the database that we'd like to create is something simple that I just represent like this. Like, it has 4 tables: the customer table, the invoice table, and the invoice has item table. What does this mean? We talk about it. And then an item. Basically, an invoice is like something that is sold to a customer. So we sell some items to customers, and then when we sell items to customers, we just remember what's the date, whose customer is that, and how much the total of the invoice, and what did we sell to them, and what quantity, and at what price. And then this is the main thing. We're going to start with that, and later on we're going to be adding some kind of triggers and see that at work, so we can see the triggers working and how they internally, how useful they can be. So let's try to do that. First of all, you need to understand one thing. What we're going to be doing now is we're going to be creating the model, this thing, the database. But in MySQL Workbench, when you design, it's different from actually having the database existing into the server. Now, the design is something, and then that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be designing the database, specifying all the fields, the details, the columns, etc., the relationships, and then we're going to be putting that database, that design, we're going to be implementing it and generating the database from that. So MySQL is going to then generate the create table statements, and we're going to run those and have them on the database. So I would like to show you all the steps to do that. So let's start with that. First thing is that we're not going to be creating a connection, but I'm going to be creating a model. And I'm going to create a new model, and I already have one, but I don't want to use that one, so I'm going to create a new one, because I would like to start from scratch. So when you create something like this, of course you can create the tables from here, and then you can put the relationships, or better, use a diagram to do that. And this is what I'm going to do. But before clicking on the diagram, you can see here, this is the name of the database. I would like to change that. And to change it, I'll just right click and then edit the schema. This is going to allow me to change the name of that schema. And then the name, I'm going to call it company 2, because that's what I'd like to use. I'm sorry? Company 2? Where do you know? How do you know that it already exists?
When you create a model, there was company 2.
I know, but that was something different. I'm going to put another one. So it's possible to have another one. You can have 2 files with the same name if they are not on the same folder. So and how do you know this was the name? And I have not saved it yet, because you see, this small asterisk here, this small symbol here, means that this model has not been saved yet. So if I click now on save, it will ask me, okay, where do you want to save and what's the name of that? And you can see I have not specified any name yet. So how do you know that this was in use? just because it's so company to you. And by the way, your observations can be improved because this is week 10 company 2. All right, so let's just start by saving. Was it saved? I just canceled the save. Let me save again. And I'd like to call it now this week 10 company 2 with the same name that the other one, but this one saved in a different place. And I'm going to save it there. Now, as you can see, it's saved, it doesn't have changed. If I add something, if I do something else, it's just going to be, for example, it's going to show if I add some notes, whatever, I can add them there. There's a lot of things that we haven't seen yet. We're going to see some of them, like these routines, for example, what do they mean, etc. Views, same thing, and then tables, we know them. But we're going to be working more with these, inshallah, as we advance. So now I'd like to create tables, but I'm not going to do that from here. I'm going to do it from this place here. I'm going to create a diagram, and that diagram will allow me to design everything visually, so I can see also the result of those tables. Now you can see here, this is the summary, this is my schema, and then if there's something I can, these are going to be shown under the category they're in. Now I'd like to create a table, and that's what I'm going to do. Let's create a table, and I click here, this is for the table, place a new table, and then you click here, and then this is the table. So I'm going to create a table, I'm going to call it, double click, and then you get all the information here. Customer. Now check this, I can specify these columns, the data type, and then these are PK for primary key, NN for not null. Not null stands for it's not empty. I'm not allowing to leave it empty. So if I check this one, it's going to be impossible to be empty. And then you have this UQ, which is unique. What if I want something not to be repeatable and it's not the primary key? I want, for example, like the department name is I don't have two departments with the same name, but the department name is not the primary key. The primary key is going to be some kind of ID, let's say. But the department name also, I want it to prevent repetition in that department name, so I can just click on this one. This is something for binary and unsigned and zero field. I don't want to talk about these because there's some kind of level of details that is not really interesting. This one, though, it's interesting. It's auto increment. For example, I'd like to have some kind of column. I don't want to put my values myself. Every time I insert a row, the database insert a number automatically is going to be incremented. So this is auto increment. So if I want that, I just click here. And this is generated column. This is a new to this version or maybe another version. I don't know what they mean with that. And the default expression is like the default value. You can specify that in this column there's a default value. Like when you initialize a variable, you can specify the default value. So let's keep going. Now what I'd like to do is to click here somewhere. By default, you're going to see it shows me like ID customer, and by default it's going to give me like the primary key. The primary key follows this kind of a template because in the options it gives you that kind of template. See, now by default it just gives me that, but I don't like it. Why I don't like it? Because let me just delete it. I don't want to do that like that. I would like to have a different way how to make it work. And if in order for me to have it worked on all the different tables, I'm going to go somewhere in these tools, or maybe edit preferences. Now in the preferences here I can do a lot of different things, but let me just go through the ones that I would like to be talking about. These modeling. Now there's a lot of different things about autosave, whatever, but this is the defaults. This is what I'm interested in. You see the primary key column name, by default is going to show me, it's going to be ID and then the name of the table. I don't want it. I want it just to be the ID. And then the default primary key data type is int. Fine, I leave it like that. Now for every column name, by default default name is going to be something like this. I don't care because I'm going to change it anyways. So I don't have any pattern for my name, but sometimes you might want to have a pattern. For example, you put the table name first and then you put the name of your column, or some other type of pattern, whatever. And the default It can be. That's why this 45 is the default one. I want it to be 50, for example. That's my default varchar, and I can change it, of course, later on. And now this other part is referring to the foreign key and relationships. So this is the foreign key name. So this S table means the source table and the destination table, and the column name is going to be the table and then the column. So, but anyways, I'm going to change that. There's an on update and on delete. This is something that we haven't spoken about a lot, but I mean, just mention it very quickly. I don't even think that you remember me talking about it, but I'm going to talk about that later on when we refer to that, inshallah. I'm not going to change that. And this is also associative table name. When I create like this many-to-many relationship, it's going to create a new table. If you'd like to have a pattern for that table, it tells you something like this is the table, this source table, and then has this destination table. So I'm not going to change anything in there. I just would like to make this to be ID. That means every time all my primary keys are going to be having ID as their name. But if you'd like to customize, you can customize something, as you can see here. I click on OK, and now if I click back here, and you can see it shows me only the ID. I don't need to change anything. Just move on to the next one. The next column, as you can see, this is the name of the table, and then col, and the varchar 50. But I'd like to have this customer. This is going to be the name, and I'm going to call it name. So name, and then as you can see, this name has a different color. I mean, can I zoom in? Yeah. So it will be much easier. So you see this color here is different from this one over here. So what is the difference? Is this not null? If you put it as not null, means this is like this color means this field is obligatory, it's mandatory. You have to put something in it. If you want that the user can leave it empty, you can just do something like that. So if I'd like to just to match this, this is what I'm going to do. And then you have total, which is double. What is the total and double? It seems like this total is for the customer, which is this customer, how many invoices, what's the total amount of the invoices that this customer has bought from us, something like that. And this one I don't need to, so I'm just going to delete the selected, and that's what I have to do. For example, the default expression I can put by default is 0. So if nobody enters anything, it's going to be by default 0. And this is the customer. Now what I'd like to do, have the invoice, and this invoice, let me put another table, and that invoice there's a relationship. I'd like to show you how this works. Now the table is called invoice, and then the primary key is going to be ID again, as you can see, and then I have date, which is a data type, and I have also the ID customer. This is a foreign key coming from this one, and then I have this total, which is again double. So I'm not going to put the foreign key myself. Why? Because there's a way how to get it done automatically. But first of all, I just remembered that I needed to have something that is going to be also a pattern. I want this for the foreign keys. The default, the name for the foreign key, the column name is just the ID and then the table. So I'm going to say ID and then table. That's the way I want the foreign key to be. So the foreign key of the column, ID and then underscore, and the name of the table, it is the foreign key from. It is, I mean, pointing to. And now after doing this, now if I'd like to make a relationship, I need to use one of those. Basically, depending on how much, what's the cardinality of that. So one customer can have many invoices, and one invoice is about one customer, so it's one too many, and I have two of these one too many. So what's the difference between these two? There's one that is called non-identifying relationship, and this one is identifying relationship. I'm going to start with this one to show you, because I don't want this one. I would like to show you what it does. When both of these are going to be creating a foreign key for you, but then this one is going to add something else. if I click on this one, if I do the foreign key is going to be part of the primary key. And let's try that. If I click on this one, this is the first time I click in, second click, and check what happens. It just put ID invoice here. Now, first of all, I don't want this kind of representation. So if you want to see this, I think in the model, in the object or relationship notation, I'm going to choose UML, so I can see the things the way I used to see them. So this is like the UML representation. Now, but what I'm saying here is that one customer can have only one invoice, and one invoice can have one or many customers. That's not what I want, but I'm just trying to show you what's the result of that if I click here. Unfortunately, there's a bug. It doesn't show here the symbol of the primary key. But check here. Can I increase this? So you can see now. Now both of these are the primary key, which means I have two primary keys? No, I never have two primary keys in a table. In this case, I have one primary key. I always have one primary key in a table. Now, but the primary key is composed of two columns instead of one, like here in the invoice. That's what does this mean. Now let me just, if I would like to move this a little bit, I can just drag and drop, and then it's just going to move up. But I don't want this to be. So now I'm just showing you that this identifying relationship, what it does, if you use this one, this identifying relationship is just going to create a foreign key plus make the foreign key a primary key, which means if you don't want it, just uncheck this, and now it's not a foreign key, it's not a primary key. So if I want to have the same order, that's what it happens. So, but I don't want to have something like this. It's not here. Actually, it's the ID customer that I want inside invoice and not the opposite. So notice what happened. Now I'm going just to delete this one. I can delete it from there, or it's right from here. Right click and then delete. It's just going to delete the relationship and the column. Okay, I want to lower this thing. It's a bit too big anyways. Now what I'd like to do is to have this one a non-identifying. So if I do put the non-identifying, you see I'm just going to be having this without the foreign key. Let's just cancel. Now you notice that if I click on the first one, the first where I click is where the foreign key is going to be. So I would like to have a foreign key inside invoice. I click first on invoice, and then it stays with that color, and then I specify from where it's coming, this foreign key. So this foreign key is coming from customer, so I click on it, and then I can see that I have this ID customer into the invoice. And this is what I would like to have. If I want to move that to put it somewhere else, I can move it like that. And this is what I'd like to have, as you can see. And now I'm going to go back, and in the total, I'll make the total not null. Okay, why is just delete this one, and I want to make it not null. I'll make the default is 0. Okay, what else? Let's add the other ones, which is the other one is not this one. I'm not going to add this one. Why? Because this one is the result of a many-to-many relationship. One invoice has many items, and one item can be found in many invoices. So what I'm going to do, as you can see here, the symbols are, it shows like these two are part of the primary key, and they're in red, which means they're foreign keys as well. And then, so that's why I'm going to add this later. But first, let me add this item here. So in the item, I'm going to create a new table. Double click, call it item, and then click here. I'm going to have the default name for the primary key, and then here, what's the name? It's called name, and then what else? Quantity in stock and selling price. Quantity in stock, it was int, yes, and then selling price, that's double, and I don't need this one. I'm just going to make them not null because I want them not to be empty, and by default I just put 0 and 0. But it's not empty. What do you mean if it's not empty? If it's not null like this?
We made it non-empty. So
Not null.
not null.
Yes.
We have to make the default expression.
We don't have to. No, we don't have to. No, we don't have to make it. Like, it's not something that is mandatory to put as default value. But if you want, you can. Just because these are numbers, and I just put the default value. But I don't have to.
Doctor,
Yes.
the relation you put between the customer and invoice
The customer invoice. Yes.
is one to many.
Yes.
But
You want to know what?
customer, the cardinality for customer is one.
Okay. What do you mean?
One to many going to be to the invoice or the customer.
No, one customer can have many invoices, right? One customer can have many invoices, and then one invoice is having only for one customer. So one invoice is only for one customer. So we have one and then many. Now your question is about what? Is it the right cardinality or
No.
how
How to choose it?
to?
How to choose it from here, from the
How to choose it? It refers to
cardinality.
the cardinality.
Yes.
Well, you don't choose the cardinality. You specify it when you do the analysis, when you design these diagrams, the things that we've been doing. You just look at the specification, and from that you try to come up with the cardinality. So we don't choose based on what we want. It's just what the situation dictates. So in this situation, we have like a customer and an invoice. Okay, if I look at all the invoices that happens, can I find in one invoice more than one customer? No, generally just you have one customer in any invoice. But we can have one customer that have many invoices. So we have this one-to-many situation. Now if we have one-to-many, we said that the foreign key should be into the one that has the many. So that's where the foreign key is going to be.
The class I feel it easy, but in the exam it's confusing because
We create a new table, exactly. So, and this is the case when we have many-to-many, for example, in this one. Now one invoice can have many items in it. And one item can be in many different invoices. So that's many-to-many. And when we have many-to-many, we're going to be having this relationship, and it's going to create the table for us. Now, I just click on say one of them, it doesn't matter, and then it gives me like this new table now. So by clicking on this one that has NM, that means many-to-many, and then it gives you that if you look at it, you see both of these are foreign keys, and then both of them are, each one of them is a foreign key, but both of them are the primary key, which refers to something like this. Now I don't know, in this new version I don't have this color like that. Probably it's missing or something. There's and the installation wasn't complete, or maybe I need to update, but normally it should show like this.
maybe if you remove the primary key, it will be erased.
No, if I remove the primary key, yes, you're right. It will be just like this, simple. I mean, I'm thinking about maybe this picture doesn't exist.
We can add the new
Of course I can add, yeah. I can add, change, I can delete, I can do everything. This is just trying to help me, but I can do everything manually if I want. If I don't want to do this using this thing, I can do it manually, and I'm going to show you, inshallah. So now what I would like to do is to add this quantity sold and price. So quantity sold, which is an int, and let's make it not null, and then price, which is a double. Alright, so that's it. And then I'm going to make it not null as well. Okay. So that's what I have. And this way I can have this database. Now this database is not available. I cannot use it at all. Yes, until I do something. Yeah.
we use cardinality set. We use to from an entity to an entity, even if it's many to many.
Yes.
But here it's from an entity to the new one, to the relation. Then from the relation, you can see that from
Are you talking about this cardinality?
Yeah.
But remember that this is going to be, you're looking at the cardinality of tables. These are not the ones that we were looking for, because we were looking for a cardinality of entities. Now these numbers are not for this, have the same meaning like we used to have, because now this is just meaning that this one shows you that there is a foreign key here that belongs to here. But the idea of the cardinality is that, like, if I have an entity invoice and an entity item, then there's only one relationship, and the result of this relationship is a table. But because of this representation, it just might be confusing. Now what I'm trying to show you is that you can create relationships this way, because it's very helpful. You don't have to type anything, or you can do it manually from here. For example, I can go to this invoice, and I would like to add a foreign key. Okay, what's its name? I'm going to name it foreign key from invoice to customer. And it references the table. Which table? Then I double click, just click, and then I'm going to see which table it's coming from. It's coming from customer, because the foreign key here is coming from customer. And then it tells me, okay, this is what is available in customer. Which one is the foreign key that I'd like to use? I'd like to use this one. Okay, and then it's associated to which one? Oh, I don't have. Now I need to select from one of these. I need to select which one of these columns is going to be the foreign key about pointing here, but I don't have any. So before I can do this, I need to go back and create a new column that I'm going to call ID customer, and it should be the same data type. Of course, you remember the primary key should have exactly the same data type from the other one, and it doesn't have to be not null. I can make it not null, but it doesn't have to. And then now if I can go back to the foreign keys, and here I can specify that this ID customer should be associated to the ID in the customer. So I'm doing these things manually myself. But if I don't do that, I can just get this done manually. I'm doing Control Z. That's why I get back this. Something happens. I'm just. Okay. What happens is that I don't want to see this one. Maybe I'm. Okay, I need to still. Wow. Something is happening that I don't want to. Maybe I went too far back. Anyways, I just go back. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to delete this thing. Delete. Why I'm deleting this? Because I would like to show you what is the result of this. Now this is how it was before, and when I create this, I have this ID customer here, and then if I click on invoice, I can come back here and see this was added automatically for me. How do I know? You see this one here, I did not type the one. It was added there, and then you can see it was telling me that this ID customer is this table. So this is what was added basically. And there's a lot of different things that I can see here. The primary key is some kind of an index, the foreign key is another index, and then we have like triggers. This is something we're going to be working on. Partitioning is something I don't want to talk about. We have different type of options to have more advanced things to do storage. Anyways, there's a lot of different things. But what's interesting is this one here, inserts. What's those inserts? And then I'm going to show you how this is going to be useful. Now, this is going to be preparing the data that goes inside the table. So now I'm just preparing myself that when I'm going to want to use this database, it will create the structure, and I want it to have some kind of values to begin with. So I'd like to put my own values, so I don't have to put them manually every time. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put something here. And you know what? I don't want to specify my ID myself, so I'm going to go back here in the columns, and this ID, I will make it auto increment. And then I go back to the inserts. I'm not going to put anything there. Just put I'm in the invoice. Even the invoice, I'm not going to put anything in the date because I don't have to. And the total, I'm going to put it 0. But hold on, there's something missing. Where is this ID customer? I don't know. Something is missing here. I don't know why it's missing. And let me just close this. Maybe I need to open it again and go here. Yes, now it's happening. I don't know why it didn't show up. So anyways, what I'm going to do, I'm going to come back here, and even though it's, oh, which one was into increment? Okay, that was the invoice. It was auto increment. But I'm not going to. Auto increment means you can put your values yourself if you want to, but it's going to be auto incremented if you don't.
I think there is advantage to save the space.
No, it's not. It's just it's going to be calculated automatically for you. There's no space saving thing. Come set up. So what I'd like to do now is that from the customer, I go to the inserts, and I'm going to put values here. For example, number 1, the name is Muhammad, and the total is going to be 0. Let's say all of them are going to be 0. Number 2 is Abdullah, and then put 0 as well. Now, once I do this, I need to click on this button to save these, because if I don't, it will not be saved. Now, I'm sorry?
Apply
This here, apply changes to data. This is what you'd like to save, whatever you have done. Because what you can do, you can delete something and then say, oh, you know what, I don't want to, oh, just leave it as it was. I can just cancel this and it will bring back how they were. So you can either save or cancel. Now I'd like to show you something that, let me connect. Remember, this name of the database is called company 2. Let me go back now. I'm going to connect. Which one is this one? I'm going to connect to the database, and I'm going to show you that whatever I did is not present in there, because I need to do a step before I can see it in the database. Now it's taking ages. All right. Now you see I have company, which is not the one. The company is that one that we have from the slides and the book, and this is the company. And the company 2 is not here. As you can see, there's only company and then your databases. And someone has this company 2, but that's not mine. So now what I'm going to do, I would like to create this company. And to do that, I can do it from this model over here. This model, basically, I can close it now. It's here. If I can open it, if I open it, I'm going to see it here again. Now, if I go back, this is now the tables that I created are here, so I can have this other view of that. And then if I'd like to add some other things, I can add it here. But for now, I don't need that. Now, what I need to do is to click on this database, something called Forward Engineer. Now, what is going to happen? This is going to connect. Tell me what I'd like you to connect. Okay, I'm going to connect, and then it's going to give me some kind of options, what I need to do, etc. One of the options, for example, is that drop object before each create, which means if they were before, it will drop them and then create them from scratch again. Or you can drop the whole thing. The whole schema is going to be deleted, and then you're going to, and that's what I'd like to do, because I'd like to start from scratch every time. So I delete the schema with all the tables and everything. All the data is going to be deleted, and then start from scratch. So this is going to be included, and then I click next. Now the same thing now is going to tell me, okay, there are some kind of, these are full tables for objects, and 4 of them are selected. If I don't want to forward to create all of them, I can. If I want to, I can filter the ones that I don't want to. But in this case, I want everything. Click next, and now this is where it's interesting, because it's going to create all the tables for me with the constraint and everything, and I don't have to mention them. And I forgot to do something, because there's also the inserts are not shown up. I'm going to go back and back, because I won't like to have these inserts. And where are they? Here they are. No. Generate insert statements for tables. Now by default they're not selected, but if you select them and click next now again, you see at the end, at the bottom, I have the insert into. These ones that I added manually in the customer, I can find them here now. Yes? What's what? ASC? Wait, ASC here? This means, we've seen that AC somewhere. No? Ascending, which is an order. Ascending, descending. When you use this order by, So this means this is some kind of index and it's stored ascending. So this is how this is internally stored, some kind of details that by default they're going to be there, but I don't want to talk about them for now. But I would like you to realize that the tables were created. There's a lot of extra information because this is something that you can do more, a lot more that we just learned, but we just focus on the ones that we want to look at. The constraint, the references, and see this on delete and on update. We don't care about this for now. And also this engine, DB, what is it? We don't care. But it generates things for us. And also it also generates the data, so I don't have to insert it myself. Type these queries every time, so they're prepared. Now check what is going to happen. If I click on next, it's going to execute. And if there's any problem, it's going to tell us there's a problem. But if there's no problem, which is what I expect should happen, we will end up with the database now being in the server. Oh, there's a problem. See, there is a problem here. Operation has completed with errors. And see the log. And the log says there was a problem somewhere here. So it says cannot add foreign key constraint. And you can see here it tells me there's something. So let me try to understand what's the problem. This invoice has item, so it's ID invoice. And then we have ID item, which is item ID. And why didn't it work?
Idea of making this table.
Yes, if you check the drop and create.
Let me just understand first, what did he say?
The phone key here.
Yes.
We are trying to add out of the table that we will make up.
That was not created first.
Yeah.
That's one the problems that we had in previously. Okay, that's something I'm going to check. And then you were saying something? Is the same thing? So you just cut him off just to say the same thing. So anyways, let's go back and see. Now this table here, I can move around things, and you can see this table invoice as item is created after the others. So what's the problem? So that's not the issue that the tables do not exist. They do exist, because as you can see, I'm creating the item, and before that I'm creating the invoice, and before that I'm creating the customer, which is the right sequence. Create the customer first, then the invoice, and then item, and then I can create the invoice as item. Now what I need to do, I need to check that everything is respecting the rules, but it seems to be. Now what kind of rules I'm looking for when I say, let me cancel this. And I'm going to go back here and see. Data type should be the same, and they are. This is int. Now this is this one. This is this one. Both of them are the primary key. So what's the problem? I don't know. And let's have a look. This is the item, and this is the invoice. The problem is with the invoice. What is this? What is this called? Oh, this is the auto increment. Maybe I created ZF means zero field. I don't want to talk about it. It just fills things with zeros, just as a summary. And maybe this is one of the problems. Let me just do the forward engineering again. You see, it just remembers the options that I just selected before, so I don't have to select them every time. And I go back and try. You see, at the end they still have this, and probably it's going to work now, inshallah. Maybe this auto increment thing is was the problem. It was, and the zero field. Probably it's more the zero field than the auto increment, because there was a condition. It has to be on both sides, because if when we do foreign key, the foreign key should have exactly the same thing as the other one, and that was maybe one of the problems. The auto increment is not there's not the issue there. That was the ZF that I clicked by mistake. Now if I close here, I go back to my connection, I just need to refresh, and I'm confident that I'm going to see company 2. Now I need just to create a new SQL, so I can just shorten this thing. So I can now use this company 2, and this is the one I'm using. I can then select star from customers. customer. And then let's run this, and I'm going to see what was in it because it's selected. The others are empty. And this is just a small introduction to how to use this MySQL Workbench to create your own database, and I'd like you to create that database. Of course, what you need to do now, when you create this model of yours, now you create the model, is going to show you this kind of window. You have to rename this with the same constraint about the naming of your schemas. So you have to start with S and then your full ID and then name it company 2 if you want. Then you can have that, inshallah. So I'd like you to try to do that. This is the company. So let me freeze this, and that concludes the video.